better than your currency. Splurging millions, buying houses like Monopoly. Fucking 9 to 5, man, the money is a joke to me. Buying cryptocurrency, my money in the privacy. I make it rain dollars, they watch me disappear. I'm so fly, man, I'ma need some land again.
Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of the B.Invested Birchy podcast. I'm your host Nathan Birch, and this is a show unraveling the truth to the facade of the 21st century. We're now it's the Matrix and waking up to motherfucking reality. That was a cool intro, Pete.
Yeah, it was a cool intro.
It was a cool intro, yeah. Talk about all different random things on here, but today we're going to be talking about finance, and I've got Peter here. Pete, maybe if you can just give the listeners a little bit of a background on what you do here at Zinger Finance.
Sure.
Yeah,
so I started off as a what's called like a broker support. Essentially, I would help the brokers in terms of the lodgement process, the approval process, and then the settlement process of our clients' applications. I then moved on to what I'm doing now, which is actually just being a full-time broker. So that pretty much is all inclusive of being a broker support, but also just taking a step back and having a look at a client's serviceability and sort of understanding their financial position and making the decisions based on like where we should go. And then obviously, moving down, I would have a broker support team where that would help me in terms of, pretty much the loan application, the lodgement process onwards. At the moment, I'm a full-time broker for Zinger Finance.
Yeah, I've known you for a long time, but like much more nowadays that we know each other. But your mum has been my broker for like 20 years. I've literally known you since you were a baby. So here we are. So this is Rose's son, Peter. So it's So you've been around brokering your whole life.
It's I've heard my mum always she's always had clients over at our house and stuff, and I guess just naturally I've sort of learned to understand what she does, and I've seen you around before I really understood why you were here and what you were doing and stuff. So I've known you for a really long time.
Yeah, it's cool. And we'll do another podcast about what you've been up to personally as well, because you've got a cool story to talk about there. But and it's just knowing how the banks work and all that sort of stuff. But I guess, just a few things about you. What makes you get up in the morning, and what do you get excited by in life, I guess?
I have a lot to prove mindset. And I think that really motivates me to do things. And I guess essentially wake up in the morning and just be motivated. I think throughout my life, I've always been set with a bunch of challenges and a lot to do with people's expectations. And every time I seem to exceed those. So I think that really keeps me going.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Awesome. Mate, eye for detail, like I come over to you and ask a question. Like I walk around the Zinger floor and in the office and like, hey, who's got someone and what do we need to do with this? He's laughing because everyone's like, fuck off, Nathan, go away, right? You're annoying, come on, I'm trying to do my work, stop asking me about these questions, right? Pete's always like bang, 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 and he's like on the ball. So I guess when submitting a loan, like your quality of the loan application, like it comes down to like the sort of service that you get at the back end of the bank. Like if you have clean files, the files are good and all that, like the quality of the work that you do is fantastic. So I think it's due to the knowledge and how you apply yourself to that. So
100%. Eye for detail is really important in this job. So it's just good and saves a lot of time because obviously as someone who's, if you're buying property, you have finance clauses and things to meet. So as a broker, you can't really afford to make those silly mistakes. You need to make sure you're always on the ball with that stuff. Yeah,
exactly. And I guess one little fun fact, if you could share with us like something they want to know about you. Yeah,
sure.
This will be interesting.
So I might not look like it, but I used to be an ex-athlete. I used to play baseball, and I was, I guess, just going back to the a lot to prove mindset. That was one of those things where, with my size and stuff, I was able to actually compete at a very, very high level. Nowadays, not so much. I went through an injury, and then since then it was a bit of a decline. But at the time when I was at the peak of everything, that was a really big thing for myself mentally, and I think that's like one of those. I think it formed a really core foundation in my mentality and stuff. So used to play baseball at a very high level.
There we go. I didn't know that until today. So thanks for that, Pete. I guess like some of the topics to discuss today, like when someone comes in to get get finance, like it's not there's brokers out there everywhere, there's banks out there everywhere. What are some of the things that are important about when someone's going to go get loans and build a large portfolio? What does the bank need? How can
so in terms of when you're applying for a loan, you will need to supply things such as, I guess, for example, the real basic things would have to do is just like your IDs, your pay slips, I guess like declaring any loans or debt that you're currently taking on. So that could extend to things like HECS, so student loans or personal loans, vehicle loans, obviously home loans, investment loans. But in terms of income and stuff, so you got your obvious ones. If you're working a PAYG job, then you would have to supply things like your pay slips, PAYG summaries. If you're self-employed, you'll need to supply tax returns. If you're making income from trusts, then you will need trust financials. It's case to case. Obviously everyone's a little bit different, but essentially you will sort of need to provide documents that would prove like your income versus your debt.
Yeah. Cool. And on that debt, like say, like a lot of people always ask, like, should I go interest only? Should I go principal and interest? What are your thoughts on that? Obviously, none of this stuff's financial advice. We're just having a chat and asking you, what's your thoughts on it? Like, what's the benefit of going interest only, I guess?
So with interest only, obviously you're just paying the interest, so you're not paying the principal down. That has its pros, namely that you have a better cash flow. So if you're purchasing an investment property, if you're not paying down the principal and you're only just paying down the interest, then it's a really big reduction in your repayments, and therefore you'll have a higher cash flow.
Yeah.
And that's pretty important in terms of building up savings. If you're looking to potentially refinance or pull equity from that property, there's no real use paying down the principal if you're only going to top it back up at a later date. So you, in a sense, then you can sort of look at just maximizing your cash flow there.
Yeah.
You've obviously got the ability to also like maximize your tax benefits and stuff. So there's a few pros with just doing interest only. As opposed to like the principal and interest route that I think a lot of people seem to sort of take, but yeah.
And I guess like if you go interest only, you can put extra down if you really want to, but you're not contracted to it too. Like if someone goes principal and interest, they're in a contract to have to pay that principal down as well, which can complicate things as well. And I guess like we're in a world now where everyone's worried about interest rates are going up. People come in, and say, well, what's the best interest rate you can do? What are your thoughts and what's your take on the interest rate component versus the type of loan product and what the loan can do? What's your thoughts on that?
So I think a lot of people tend to be really fixed on the interest rate. I think it's a real, it's a pretty big thing in people's eyes. But when it comes to like investing and stuff, interest rates don't necessarily have to be at the forefront of people's minds. I think it should really come down to if you're able to, firstly, like your serviceability. Your serviceability is a really big thing. If you're looking at refinancing, then looking at valuations, what lenders are sort of giving values for your properties, because ultimately that will help you jump to your next property. And the interest rates sort of can sit back a little bit, because I mean, if you're, if one lender is giving you a better valuation than another, and that would mean that ultimately you can afford another property, because your serviceability is good with that other lender as well, then I think the interest rates can take a little. You don't really need to focus super hard on it, and especially look if you're paying interest only, the cash flow is already there. So I think a lot of people tend to put the interest rates at the forefront of the picture. While interest rates are important and it does affect your cash flow, there are other components, especially with investing, that should be looked at pretty seriously as well. At least throw those variables in the mix with the interest rate in mind.
Yeah, so I guess if you pay an extra 0.25% interest rate with one bank, but that bank will allow you to do interest only instead of principal and interest, or if that bank will allow you to pull out an extra 50k equity, that 50k equity could buy you a secondary property. That property could be putting $50 in your pocket. It's going to cover the shortfall, which so cool. So I guess making sure that the loan product, the loan strategy is in line with the overall acquisition strategy and exit strategy of the position. Which,
100%.
Cool. And I guess like you help lots of people. I always talk about the deals and like, I bought this thing for someone and they're doing whatever they're doing with it. It's gone great. a big chunk of it comes down to finding the property, but the other half of it is, if you don't have the money, you can't do the deal, right? And if someone's out there and they're watching, and from your side, like you seeing like how many not how many clients, but what sort of size portfolios do you see of the clients that you're working with?
I have a variety. It can go from no properties to 10 plus, 15 plus properties. Yeah. People come to me with all sorts of scenarios, whether they're just starting out and we're sort of building their start of their investment journey, or people who've come to are seasoned veterans at this stuff, and they're having trouble with their previous broker with servicing, and they're just looking for other options or other possibilities. Yeah. I deal with a wide range of clients, and I've also taken people from no properties to 10 properties within the year. So I've seen a lot, and with the amount of clients that I've sort of had over the years of being a broker, it almost feels like I've gone through every single scenario. So yeah, a wide range of clientele I have. Lots of scenarios thrown at me. Yeah.
PAYG, self-employed, trust, super funds. Yep. That's cool. Yeah. And I guess as like sort of like a bit of a part in that, like when you said that, like when you were saying like I've got these clients that are like 10 plus in a year and stuff, like even I got excited, right? Because I'm like, fuck, well, that's cool what we've done. I'm the one in the trench doing the deal side of it on the other front. But people might be listening in and thinking like, I need to speak to Pete, like, what, are my brokers shit or whatever the case may be. What sort of advice, like maybe some like tips that people could take away today that could improve their position or, help them in their journey, like as far as obtaining finance?
I'd say pay very close attention to the current debt that you're taking. It is a very big thing. I think people tend to sort of forget about student loans. And from what I've seen with serviceability, it can actually be a pretty big killer. So just managing debts outside of, obviously the good debt that will yield you income, just pay very close attention. If you have student loans and stuff and you're looking to get loans, but you're having trouble with serviceability, it might be worth asking your broker, if we were to remove that, how would that really affect my serviceability? Even things with credit cards you don't really use. I've had a lot of people who just have credit cards for the sake of it, which is fine, but it does affect servicing and it does add up. You could have a few $5,000 credit cards just laying around that you might not even be aware of, and that really does add up and affect your servicing. So I'd say just pay close attention to the debt and anything that you might have signed up for in the past for credit cards and stuff that will affect your serviceability. If you're not using it and it's not necessary, then it's worth probably closing.
Yeah. Awesome. Good advice there. And I guess here's just a little fun one. Complete this sentence, Pete. I wish property investors would.
I wish property investors would trust the process. I think that you should, while you should do your research, you are working with professionals. And I think that, at least in my experience, not that I have had people who don't trust me or anything like that. I just think that if I provide some sort of advice, at least it should, I've been through the ringer a bunch of times, and the chances of me running into the same scenario is almost 100%. And just having faith in the process, whether that's with me or even with your advice, with B.Invested, if you can just trust the process, I think you would go a long way.
So many times, like people's decisions and actions that they take will get them to somewhere in life, but that's all it's taken them to, right? And good or bad, right? And we all have good and bad traits, but there's a big difference, like for you to get someone 10 properties in a year, right? It ain't because they're sitting here with $10 million in their back pocket and they're on $1 million a year income. They're just average everyday people. So the difference between you getting someone to 10 or 15 or 20 properties or someone getting to 1 or 2 properties is very different mindset, different structuring. Yeah. So when Pete says trust the process, it is a bit cliche, but it's like, you've got the results. You're the one doing it.
Exactly.
Right? You're building the portfolio. We're building the portfolio. So don't really look at it from that perspective, but it's true, right?
Yeah.
So, Cool. Awesome. Well, and yeah, I think when you go to speak to your broker, like, do ask them those sort of questions. Like, you do want to know, like, is my broker capable of getting me there? Like, I know from my side, before I send people over, I'm like, tell me, have you got anyone to finance, blah, blah, blah. They're like, oh yeah, my friend's cousin, whatever, it's good, they work at a bank or this. I'm like, okay, cool, you know someone that can do finance, but what is the result that they've been able to achieve? How many people did they have? What is your goal? Oh, I want to get 10 properties. Okay, well, how many people have they helped get to 10 properties? Oh, they've got one guy who got 3 properties in the last 10 years. It's like, well, no, how many people got fucking 10 properties in a year? How many people got 15 properties in 2 years? They're the things that you need to be knowing. And then asking those sort of questions, like, Pete's not here to go, oh, well, this is Bob Smith and he did blah, blah. Like, but if you ask him, I'm sure he'll say, well, yeah, I've got a client that's in a similar position to yours. This is what we did and how we're able to get there. The sort of questions you want to know that your broker's going to have the capacity to be able to get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, and it can even extend to things like, if you haven't heard of some of the lenders that I might be throwing at you, as if I'm speaking to you about, the potential ideas and lenders that we can go with. I know that obviously when I deal with investors, serviceability is a very big concern, and so we'll look for alternatives with second tier lending. And part of trusting the process is to understand that just because it's not a big 4 bank doesn't mean that it's going to be a huge issue. You'll always, if you're looking to get 10 plus properties, you're always going to end up in this atmosphere of second tier, third tier lenders. It's just the nature of investing, and to just trust that this, the ideas that we're moving with are what other people have done to achieve what you want. So
All comes from that. Cool. Thanks, Pete, for coming on the podcast today. If people want to be in contact with Pete, if you've got a mortgage and you want to get a second opinion on it, if you've got, if you're thinking of getting a mortgage, if you're thinking of starting out, probably the best place to start is getting the finance sorted. And without the finance, you can't do deals. So if you want to get in contact with Pete, click on the link below and you follow the link. Book yourself in for a chat with Pete and see what you can do. And it might be something with interest rate. It might be that Pete can get you a discount of 3%. I saw a thing the other day, an ad that was up on social media. You get 2.9% rate discount or something, right? There's like different products out there. Come to Pete, tell him your position, tell him what you've got, tell him what you need to do. Let Pete have a look and see what he can do, and it will surprise you. So
magic.
Exactly. Cool, thanks Pete, appreciate that.
No worries.
Thanks a lot for everyone tuning in. If you like this, contact Pete. If you do like it as well, like us, share it, tag your friends and family, and make sure to subscribe. Google Play, Apple Play, Spotify, and YouTube. We'll catch up next week. Have a great week. Bye for now.
Like Bilal said, man, we're stuck in the matrix. This my advice, don't care if you take it. The dollar back to die, soon to be hyperinflated. This my 2 cents, don't care if you save it. Joint be decentralized and you will see you been lied to the whole time, and it's the irony, cause they do the exact opposite. You become a slave to the system, enough your money, all they do is profit. There's no conspiracy theory, you better hear me. Crypto will set you free before the system does. I don't care if you do or you don't, but what I'm saying is the truth to the reason you choke. I never been a failure, excuse my behavior. Keep talking, haters doing me a favor. They all tell lies, I know what they been telling you. I'm the opposite, the Donald Trump of Australia. It's amazing, here for the taking. My time is never wasted, just getting wasted. These girls say I'm really breathtaking. I can't help it if I really misbehaving.